5 Radio. It's time for Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. Brought to you by Pickup Outfitters. Since 1997, we've been outfitting trucks, SUVs, and vans at 220 Lake Air Drive or createacommotion.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar here on Sikkim 365 Radio. Taking a look at a few stories around sports. And I haven't seen any other stories on this. This is relatively small. I'm not sure how many of our audiences will even recognize the name, but Brody Trahan used to play at Baylor, has been at Tulsa as a quality control special teams, been involved in recruiting as well. It's a Texas high school football note. I saw where he's going to be joining the Rockwall Heath Hawks football program as their new defensive coordinator. So that's an interesting move from Tulsa to Rockwall Heath defensive coordinator. Brody Trahan.
Mike Stradlin had retired. He had led them to a nice little stretch. They had the quarterback who was initially committed to Indiana, ended up signing in the Dallas area. So that's interesting. It's probably a tie somehow there. And his father, of course, a legendary coach in the 409.
Yeah, so just an interesting high school / Baylor note right there. So good luck to him. As his high school football coaching journey continues on. Elsewhere, there has been now a full coaching carousel in the NFL, and we have finally reached the end of it. All 9 head coaching moves have been filled. Chicago Bears with Matt Eberflus. Denver Broncos go with Nathaniel Hackett. Texans with Lovie Smith. Also had the Raiders with Josh McDaniels. Jags with Doug Peterson. Miami Dolphins with Mike McDaniel, and they actually posted on the Dolphins social media page today a conversation he had with Tua, kind of them getting to know each other a little bit, so it was cool to kind of listen in on that. Vikings go with Kevin O'Connell, and the Saints with Dennis Allen, Giants with Brian Daboll. So nearly a fourth of the league hiring new head coaches this year, or actually more than a fourth of the league. Excuse me, more than a fourth of the league hiring new head coaches. So with all the dust settled, I was just curious if you had one in particular that you thought was a great hire or a terrible hire, or just your thoughts in general on the NFL coaching carousel.
Yeah, it seemed like it lingered for a long, long time.
Really? I felt like it went pretty quick for 9 jobs. It was like a couple weeks. I mean, but that's your opinion. That's just fine. Yeah.
No, I mean,
I personally, I like the Mike McDaniel hire in Miami because
analytics guy.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is he's going to run an offense that's built around Tua. Like they're embracing that. At least for now, it appears that they're doing that. It's embracing the idea of Tua and trying to run the ball more, which will help him a lot more as well. I like that one. I like Brian Daboll to the Giants. If he's going to be a good head coach, if he's a match for a quarterback that he can get the most out of, I think Daniel Jones, who's going to be their quarterback next year, that's the guy who might be able to get the most out of him because he is, Josh Allen light. Nathaniel Hackett in Denver, I like that one. Some of the other ones, we'll see. Matt Eberflus, I know that the Cowboys thought really highly of him, but the Bears are one of those teams, when I talked about the owners earlier, that clearly, they're in the middle of the pack when it comes to ownership.
Yeah.
And that's even more important than anything else.
Mm-hmm. And my only thing is, and just of the 9, how many will be there in 3 years?
Yeah, that's the thing.
3?
Yeah.
Probably about that.
3.
I mean,
and of the ones who are 32, of the 23 remaining, how many of them will be there in 3 years? It'll be probably a small percentage.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of interesting situations, but a lot of teams that have also done this a lot here recently. The Jaguars in particular. Can Doug Peterson finally be the guy to get them back to where they were just a couple years ago before, Jalen Ramsey left and all hell kind of broke loose? They were actually onto something. I mean, Josh McDaniels and the Raiders seem like a team right now with the Vegas tie-in that it really seems like they're on the cusp of becoming even bigger and all of that, but got to get over that hump in winning. I mean, they won plenty enough this year, just not enough ultimately to get to the ultimate goal. And that's why, you hope that Josh McDaniels is that guy. Because, man, if they could get something going in Vegas, I mean, can you imagine how crazy that city would go for, a Super Bowl contending team? That would be absolute nutso out there. But, yeah, interesting to see the carousel come to a close. And we'll see how these guys end up doing. College coaching hire. Michigan set to hire Vanderbilt defensive coordinator Jesse Minter, replacing Mike McDonald. And the tie-in here, well, Jesse Minter has some experience with the Baltimore Ravens. And The Harbaugh family obviously has some ties with Jim Harbaugh in particular obviously has a brother over on the Ravens staff. So McDonald was hired by He replaces Mike McDonald after McDonald was hired by John Harbaugh as the Ravens defensive coordinator. So you're basically swapping now with the Harbaugh brothers, Michigan and the Baltimore Ravens. But that was a hire for Michigan defensive coordinator Jesse Minter as they look to get back to the college football playoff. Joe Judge was fired by the Giants. Apparently he's going to join the Patriots organization. The early indication, or last I saw, was as some type of an offensive assistant. So we'll see exactly where he falls when all that's said and done. But Joe Judge back in coaching, and he was actually apparently being courted by the Raiders and Josh McDaniels as well to bring him on as a special teams coach.
Well, you're a college coach, you need a rebound, you go to Alabama. If you are an NFL coach and you need a little help maybe,
well, he
might want to.
And he was at both places.
Yeah.
He's been to, he's a Saban Belichick disciple, Joe Judge is. And you notice he's offensive assistant. Belichick has done this weird thing since Flores left and some of the other guys like Brian Daboll left, is that now that Josh McDaniels is gone, instead of saying you're a coordinator, he goes just offensive assistant.
Yeah.
That's what he does. It's weird. Yeah. I'm sure he has to name somebody. I'm sure there's some sort of league rule or contract stipulation, but yeah, you're just kind of an offensive. So nobody knows who's going to call the place in New England yet, but maybe it's Joe Judge. You don't know.
Yeah, we don't know just yet. I mentioned with Mack Rhodes, I asked him about that lawsuit that is coming up, or that was filed today. The National College Players Association submitted a claim to the LA-based regional office of the National Labor Board. It names USC, UCLA, the NCAA, and Pac-12 as employers unfairly restricting rights of employees, a.k.a. college athletes. So basically, the way that Dan Murphy at ESPN broke it down was if they're successful, and this will take many months, obviously, to get through the courts and all of that, but if they were successful, then every college athlete in the top 3 sports in college athletics would be considered employees of their schools and all that comes with that. And there would not be any limitations on, who can be paid what and things like that. And we're already starting to kind of get into that territory. But they said college athletes meet the definition of employees under labor law. These athletes deserve every right afforded to them under labor laws, just like other hardworking Americans. And of course, the NCAA is opposed to this and they declined comment. But this is one where, like the next big iceberg to watch out for potentially. I think that would fall in line here, but I also don't think it's going to be some quick, clean, easy process. And I don't know that it actually, as much as it might benefit these 3 sports, I think we said this when this kind of got brought up a few months ago, was do you do it for the sake of wiping out tons of other sports? Because that's absolutely what would happen.
The people doing this don't even think about that.
No.
They have not begun to consider the repercussions, because they think, okay, if you say that they're employees, well, you can decide as a company. If you told me right now that Sigum 365, we had this division, that division, that division, that division, and there was a union we had to, or there was some reason we had to, they could eliminate a division. They could say, well, this isn't profitable to us, so we'll just eliminate it. It happens all the time with big companies. So if you're going to start treating universities like that, and like while the letter of the law or what you're looking at may make sense, and maybe it does, the bottom line is that there are consequences to what you're doing. And when you say, okay, they have to be employees, they're like, okay, fine, they are. We can't afford to lose them. We can't afford to lose football or basketball or whatever. But guess what we can't afford to lose? Everything else that keeps us, until we get to Title IX compliancy. They are not thinking about it all. They think there's some kind of overlap that's going to save everybody. There's not. When you tell somebody that they're a company, then they can start treating people like a company, and they can fire employees.
Yep, they can. So we will see where this goes, but that is another kind of, like I called it an iceberg on the horizon that the college athletics leadership has to, wade their way through and try not to hit. But it's kind of like everything else. You just know there's not going to be anything done until it starts. And then by the end of months and months from now, and this is all sewed up, then the NCAA will have a comment on it, once they're told what to do. But this seems like one where they're not just going to sit back and be told this was one you'd fight over, because it would basically, as much as people made out about NIL and all that stuff, this would completely crater large swaths of college athletics.
You would think.
You would think, yeah.
There's some things.
Because where's the money coming from? Yeah. I mean, money go brrr, but
the
NCAA
at some point, like, don't let the dog out. No, let's let the dog out. Well, do you have a fence? Oh, damn.
So
we lost the dog.
It's not anything that's like imminent by any means. It's going to have to, again, work its way through the courts, but it's kind of weird to think about what that could look like. Have you guys watched much Olympics at all?
I made it clear.
That's clear. No,
only because I'm forced to.
I the other day I happened to it just popped on. Maybe the Peacock or the Mongoose station or whatever it was, or whatever they call it, and I turned it.
Yeah, and I was just curious.
I'm not going to watch. I'm just in many ways.
I definitely, with the world events going on surrounding the Olympics, it's left a bad taste in my mouth, and I'm not enjoying it nearly as much. I'm not watching it nearly as much. I watched a little bit of snowboarding, and I think there's something else the other day. So I've watched a tiny bit. I was just curious where you guys kind of sat on that. For what it's worth, the Russian Olympic Committee, not preparing for war at all. Trust us, we're not. Absolutely not. They do lead the way with 10 medals so far in China, Norway in second place with 8, Netherlands, Italy, Austria, all third with 7 medals apiece. U.S. in a tie for 8th. They've got 5 medals so far, none of them golds, though. No gold so far for Team USA. But did have a big skating performance yesterday. Chen, I forget his first name, in the short program, I believe, broke a record. I may be getting that all
Chen is his last name. I can't remember his first name
either. It's Nathan, maybe?
Nathan Chen, yeah. I'm not a fan of the Winter Olympics because I didn't grow up in a snow area.
That's a big part, too.
So it's just
to me, that would be even a reason why you want to.
But also to me, like, I'm going to say this, most of the sports I can't follow enough. They're kind of boring to watch, and they don't progress fast enough. So it's like, all right,
I'm not going to see Get Off My Lawn. The Olympic Games in the winter and summer, I used to love them. I used to keep up with the medal count. I would know the athletes, the stories, and I thought networks did a great job. Bottom line, it's become way too professional for me, which I'm not complaining about, but for me,
pay the Olympians.
It's become way too damn political for me, and it's in freaking China. And that's why I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah, that's what I have a problem is that, and I did see something Mike Tirico did the other day where he had some experts on China and he was discussing it and he wasn't afraid to ask the tough questions that he's there, so but Mike Tirico is the pro's pro. So he asked the questions he had to ask. But when you're watching this 2-week Valentine to China, it's hard for me to be like, all right, well, and then you think about the IOC and like, there's got to be somewhere where the IOC and these places say, like, look, until you clean up your yard, we're not going to put these world events there. And China's got to clean up their yard.
Who was the one who was supposed to host the World Cup and they lost it? Wasn't there a country like a...
Well, Russia lost the World Cup. They were supposed to get the next, but that's changed. But yeah,
all right.
But they're still going to Qatar this year in the World Cup. And that should have never happened.
Yeah.
There's all the grift that goes on there. So
all the Olympic sports and stuff, that's the most corrupt it gets. Like the IOC is as corrupt as it gets. But 7 medal events taking place today. So we'll see if Team USA adds any goals. But I'm with you guys. I'm pretty much checked out on the Winter Olympics this time around. And a big part of where it is and what's going on around the world. And let's pretend for 2 weeks and then... let's see what happens after these. Like that's what I'm watching.
Turn your head and cough.
Well, I'm watching what happens as soon as these Olympics are over, and then what happens after that. And I think a lot of other people are too. It's kind of hard to just focus on the sports aspect of it, given all of that. And finally, a couple of trades in the NBA today. You're looking around at Davion Mitchell is one of the better Baylor players in the league, and he was somebody affected by the news today as the Sacramento Kings making some moves, a 6-player deal, and Davion Mitchell stays put. He's not going to be going anywhere, but he will be losing teammates Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson. Like a Big 12 trio, is it not?
Yeah.
Big 12 star trio in exchange for Domantas Sabonis. So Davion Mitchell's going to have no longer on his roster Halliburton, Hield, and Thompson, and in return, Justin Holiday, Jeremy Lamb, future second-round pick, and Domantas Sabonis. So Kings 15 games under 500, but for Davion, much bigger weight's going to be placed on his shoulders, I think, moving forward.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be nuts about losing Tyrese Halliburton. That was again that one doesn't make sense to me unless you just really wanted Sabonis.
Sabonis is a guy, and Tim McMahon, Coop, those are people I go to for NBA. I look at the reactions. They traded the one player on the roster who should have been off limits.
Yeah.
So there you go. Yeah, no, I know Pacers fans are rejoicing based on what I've seen, and Kings fans are a little more, what? So, yeah, that was one of the big moves made today in the NBA, and I'll just leave it there for right now. There's a few things off the radar.
5:05, and when we come back, text